What is going on, everybody? It is your man, Cleveland Terry, and although this might look like I have this amazing new 4-deck controller that nobody has seen, that's not the case. I have two, not one, but two Numark mixers, the Platinum FX and the Mixtrack Pro FX. Why do I have two of them? Because I wanted to compare both of them to see which one you should buy. But the simple fact is, I actually didn't need two because they are exactly the same controller except for two key things, really one key thing. First thing, you have your jog wheels. The jog wheels that are located on the Platinum FX, the full color display jog wheels versus no displays. And then you have your 4-deck controller versus 2-deck controller. Besides that, as far as the DNA is concerned, they both share the exact same internals, the exact same externals. They're pretty much the same, except for the fact that, you know, when you look at twins, it always looks like one twin kind of took all the good stuff while they were in the womb. Well, that's what happened with the Platinum FX. You have the good one, and then you have the one that, yeah, it's close enough, but it's not the good one. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, so because they are both the exact same controller, we're gonna remove one of these and we're only gonna talk about one, but please understand that we're talking about both of them. Before we have to clear this, I just wanna talk about aesthetically what you have on the front and the back of the controllers. Now, the back of the controller has your mic in, your USB, your output, which is only an RCA. I would have liked to have seen a booth monitor out, but as an entry-level controller, I understand. On the front side, you got your standard 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch headphone jack, pretty common on all of the devices out there. So let's move this one to the middle and let's talk about this one. Now, as I said before, this one with the displays is probably the one that most people are gonna buy because of really the strangest part of this whole thing, the cost. The difference between this one with the color displays and the non-color displays and 2 channels is $50. It's kind of a no-brainer for most people. They're gonna end up with this one. So let's talk about the good and the bad of this controller. Now, I wanna say, you're probably asking me, why in the world are you reviewing this controller when it's been out for a couple of months? Well, I actually have had these controllers sitting here for a couple of months. I did a huge review on them. It was like 2 hours long. Each one I broke down specifically. And then I went back and looked at it and I said, why are you doing so much work for this? This is an entry-level controller. You can't compare what's in a $250 controller with what's in a $1,000 or $1,500 controller. So I scrapped that one and decided, let's just do another one all over again. Spent the last couple of days just using it again, just getting a feel for it. So now I really think I can talk about this one intelligently and to a point where somebody who's looking into DJing can understand what's going on. Okay, let's take a look at the top of this board. So the top of this board has your standard mic and master. The microphone is, of course, 1/4 inch, and it is just a straight volume knob. There's no EQ, there's no tone, but as far as I'm concerned, the mic sounded well. I was doing a DJ session today on Twitch, and let's turn on the mic. Two. Now this is the microphone. This is the way it sounded when I was doing my session today. I was on it the entire time, and it's a good microphone. I mean, it's good enough to be used in a professional setting. There is nothing special about this microphone. It's just your standard basic Shure mic. In fact, this isn't even the Shure mic. This is the pile mic. It's a pile of, you know what I'm saying. On this controller, besides these amazingly beautiful jog wheels, the one thing that's gonna probably get people to say, hey, what is that? That is your effects paddles right here. That's right, on an entry-level controller, Numark put paddles on here. Now, keep in mind, the only thing with paddles out there are the S9, the 72, and the 70. Those are $1,300 to $2,000 mixers. So this one having paddles is a godsend. And I will tell you, I've been reviewing another mixer and it doesn't have paddles. And once you start using paddles, you realize how beneficial they are, and you really don't want to go back to just pressing a button. So I'm really glad that this one has it. It actually makes this controller feel a little more expensive than it actually is. So this is great. They're really, really responsive. They bounce back easily. Pull down for a momentary effect, push up to lock in place to keep the effect on indefinitely. They are really, really good. The effects, they're Serato effects, so they're gonna sound as good as the Serato effects that are built in. The only thing that I wish you would have been able to do is, I wish I would have been able to change which echo that I use, because I have the larger packs which have the different echo effects, the echo hold, the break echo. I have all of these different echoes, and I would have loved to have created my own user-defined echo. But because you can change it in Serato and it'll be there, but the moment you press echo again, it resets itself for the moment you leave the page and go back to it. So one of those things, it'd be nice if it had, doesn't have it, neither here nor there. As far as your effects are concerned, you have two knobs, very simple. One that establishes the beats. All of these things are just at the turn of a knob, and then you have your dry and wet adjustment right here. I find it was actually very easy to use, and it was clean sounding, so no issues whatsoever. Scroll over to the middle of here, and then you have your master gains, not to be confused with your master knob, but your gains on your tracks, and then you have your pots. Pots are good, the EQs work really, really well, didn't have a real issue with them at all, and then you have a nice big filter button with an actual 0 click, 12 o'clock click, which is nice to be able to know where that middle is, because for some reason, they did not put the 0 click on the faders. The tempo faders do not have a 0 click in the middle. They go all the way through with travel, but no 0 click. So it's hard to find where exactly your 0 is on the controller. And because I think that the faders are a tad bit jumpy. So when you're trying to make micro adjustments, it never seems to get exactly where you want, or it just takes a little while longer. Back to the middle, you have your headphone cue and your cue gain and cue mix. Nothing is on front of the mixer. Everything is located on the panel, and I actually like that. You know I like that. I'm not a big fan of having controllers in the dark that you can't see in the front. As far as the volume faders are concerned, they're fine. They're nothing to write home about. They do the job. And the crossfader is actually pretty good. There's a little bit of a dead area right in here, similar to the Denon Prime Go. But as far as scratching was concerned, as far as using the crossfader, it was fine. The pads are actually really good, albeit they might take a little more pressure than I'd like. When I first started using them, it felt like I was having to press harder than usual. Once you get used to the pressure that it takes, it's not a big deal, but you do have to press a little harder than say some of your other pads or some of your more high-end pads. They're not as reactive, not as sensitive as the other pads. You do have your basic buttons, your shift, your sync, your cue, your play, your loops, all these things. Strange thing is though, where normally on most of the mixers, you have your cue, you have your loop roll, you have your slicer, and then you have your sampler. They've decided not to use those, and they've decided to put the auto loop and fader cuts. Now, I don't have a problem with any of the sections here. Actually, I do. Fader cuts are kind of gimmicky to me. I don't think they were necessary, and they're just emulating the opening and closing of the crossfader, which as a beginning DJ, you should probably learn how to do anyway. So I would have rather have had my loop roll to remain here, because I find that I use my loop roll a lot more than anything else on here besides the cue point. What you don't have on here, you don't have any tone play, you don't have any key change. It's not even a secondary option, so don't even think about that. This is a really, really straightforward entry-level controller. Now, as far as the Platinum having a little more than the Pro, yes, the Platinum has a 4-deck system in here. I will never now or ever will ever want to use a controller for 4-deck controls that have 2 faders. It's pointless to me. It feels like we needed a way to justify the additional cost, so let's give them 4 decks too, even though most people, especially your entry-level people, aren't going to be rocking 4 decks anyway. The $50 is going to the displays, and rightfully so. I would have rather had a booth out for the additional $50 or $75 than have 4 decks. As I was doing my mixes online, I had my output going into my A10 Mini, and I couldn't hear it, so I had to rock the entire mix through the headphones. Not a problem, it can be done, but this device does not have split cue, so it makes it even harder. There's certain things that I would have rather seen on this versus others, and I don't really consider split cue to be some professional feature. I think split queue should be on all devices. Besides a couple of grumblings that I have, it's a very good controller. And I think that most people, beginner, intermediate, professional, would look at this as a controller to own. Especially if you're a professional, having a secondary controller to go along with you in case some stuff goes down. This is a great controller. I did an entire 2 hours on Twitch, and to be honest with you, it didn't feel like a toy to me. It felt like I was using, you know, my DDJ 1000 or a higher end controller. I mean, it just feels good. Is it all plastic? Yes, it's all plastic, but it feels solid. It doesn't feel cheap. For $250, I'm not sure you're going to find a controller better than this. All right, guys, if you found what I said are useful, hit that like button. If you found what I said are really useful, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow me on the Instagrams and the Twitters. It is always a pleasure. If I don't talk to you later, we'll talk soon. Peace.